Two of the widest passenger jets ever built are rolling toward each other. Same runway, thick fog. Neither crew can see more than a few hundred feet ahead. Neither plane was ever supposed to be on this island. In the next few minutes, 583 people will lose their lives. It will become the deadliest accident in the history of commercial aviation. And it won't happen in the sky. It will happen on the ground, on a runway, between two planes that should never have crossed paths. Here's the part that still gets me. Earlier that afternoon, one passenger who'd already landed decides not to reboard for the short hop to the next island. Nothing dramatic. She lives nearby. Flying out just to turn around and come back the next day feels like a waste, so she stays behind. That one practical choice is the only reason she isn't one of the 583. By the end of this, you'll understand how a bomb threat on a different island, an airport never built for this much traffic, and one radio warning swallowed by overlapping transmissions, all lined up in a few hours to create the worst day in aviation history. Investigators agreed on the immediate causes, but debate over how to share the blame continued for decades. Let's start hours earlier on an island that was never even part of the plan. Sunday, March 27, 1977. Just another day for two planes that have no reason to ever cross paths. KLM Flight 4805 lifts off from Amsterdam that morning, a charter packed with Dutch families headed for a spring holiday in Gran Canaria, plenty of them with kids. Around the same time, Pan Am Flight 1736 is making the same run from the opposite direction. Passengers from the American West Coast, most of them retirees starting a Mediterranean cruise. Different airline, different continent, different kind of passenger. The only thing they share is the same island as their final stop. Then, just after 1 in the afternoon, a bomb goes off inside the terminal at Gran Canaria Airport, planted by a group fighting for the island's independence from Spain. Several people are hurt. With officials bracing for a second device, the airport shuts down completely. Every inbound flight, including both these jets, gets rerouted to the nearest airport that can take them, a small regional strip on the neighboring island of Tenerife. If you want to know how a bomb on one island ends up causing the worst crash in aviation history on another, hit like and subscribe now, because this is exactly where it starts going wrong. By early afternoon, Los Rodeos is buckling under traffic it was never built for, a small regional airport perched 2,000 feet up in the hills, one runway, one real taxiway. Normally it runs on a skeleton Sunday crew, just 2 air traffic controllers. Now half a dozen diverted jets, including both 747s, are packed onto an apron built for a fraction of that number. KLM's passengers get bussed off the plane and turned loose in the terminal for hours, drifting between the cafeteria and the souvenir counters with nothing to do but wait. Pan Am's passengers stay buckled into their seats the entire time. Up front on the KLM flight, Captain Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten, 50 years old, KLM's chief flight instructor, and unofficially the face of the airline. His photo runs in their in-flight magazine. On paper, nobody on that runway is more qualified. In practice, he spends nearly all his time now training pilots in a simulator. Today is his first time flying an actual passenger route in 12 weeks. There's also a clock running that has nothing to do with the weather. Dutch regulations cap how long a crew can stay on duty before they're legally required to rest. If this delay drags on much longer, Van Zanten's crew blows past that limit, stuck on the islands overnight. He wants this plane in the air. Soon, that urgency is going to matter a great deal.
When Las Palmas finally reopens, Van Zanten makes a call that shapes the rest of the afternoon. Instead of refueling at Gran Canaria like planned, He decides to top off the tanks here at Tenerife, wanting to avoid getting stuck in line once every diverted flight converges on Las Palmas at once. Loading roughly 55,000 liters of fuel takes about 35 minutes. The problem is where he's parked. With the KLM 747 sitting on the single taxiway, there's only about 3.5 meters of clearance beside it, nowhere near enough room for Pan Am's jet to slip past and reach the runway on its own. Pan Am is stuck waiting on it. More delays stack up. Airport staff have to track down a Dutch family of 4 who wandered off and haven't made it back to the gate. And one KLM passenger, a tour guide named Robina van Lanschot, decides she isn't getting back on at all. She lives on Tenerife. Flying to Gran Canaria only to turn around and come home the next day feels pointless, so she steps off for good, with no idea yet what that small decision is about to mean. And while everyone waits, the weather turns. Clear skies start giving way to low cloud drifting in off the hills, thickening by the minute over an airport already packed with too many planes in too little space. As the afternoon slides toward 5 o'clock, the tower finally releases KLM to move. The instruction: taxi the full length of runway 30, then swing the jet a full 180 degrees at the far end to line up for departure. Minutes later, Pan Am gets its turn. Follow the same runway behind KLM, then peel off onto the parallel taxiway using the third turnoff on the left. That last detail causes trouble almost immediately. Los Rodeos' side exits aren't marked. In weather that's closing in by the minute, one turnoff looks a lot like another from the cockpit. Pan Am asks the tower to confirm the number. The controller doesn't hesitate. "The third one, sir. 1, 2, 3. Third one." First Officer Bragg and the crew start counting exits as the runway slides by outside, cross-checking each one against a paper diagram. Except by now, outside is mostly fog. What had been decent visibility when the planes first reached the runway is collapsing. Investigators later put it at around 500 meters, in the densest patches under 100. That's shorter than a football field and closing fast. So here's where things stand. KLM rolling toward the far end to make its turn. Pan Am somewhere behind it, still hunting for an exit it hasn't found. Both crews boxed in by the same drifting cloud, neither one able to see how close the other jet really is. At 17:05, Van Zanten lines up on the runway and pushes the throttles forward before he has takeoff clearance. First Officer Merce stops him, reminds him they don't have it yet. Van Zanten radios the tower that KLM is ready for takeoff. The tower reads back a standard departure route, heading and altitude to fly after leaving the ground, but never actually says the words "cleared for takeoff." Merce reads the routing back and adds a line of his own, one that isn't standard phrasing at all. "We are now at takeoff." Van Zanten is already pushing the throttles forward again as he says it. The tower, caught off guard, replies "okay," then adds "stand by for takeoff, I will call you." At almost the same instant, Pan Am keys their mic to say they're still on the runway. The two transmissions overlap into a burst of interference. In the KLM cockpit, only that opening "okay" comes through clearly. On board, flight engineer Schroeder asks if Pan Am has actually cleared the runway. Is he not clear that Pan American? Van Zanten answers, "Oh yes." The takeoff continues. Seconds later, Merz calls out V1, the point of no return. At almost the same moment, Pan Am's crew spots KLM's landing lights breaking through the fog dead ahead and hauls the plane hard toward the grass. Van Zanten yanks the nose up, trying to clear it. It isn't enough. The two 747s collide on the runway at Los Rodeos. 583 people are killed, all 248 aboard KLM and 335 aboard Pan Am. 61 survived, all from the forward section and wing area of the Pan Am jet. It remains, to this day,
the deadliest accident in the history of aviation. In the fog, no one at first realizes there are two wrecks, not one. The KLM 747 has come down and broken apart roughly 150 meters past the collision point, engulfed in flame from its full fuel load, visible enough that responding firefighters raced straight toward it. It takes several minutes before the fog thins enough for them to spot a second fire, several hundred meters back up the runway. Only then do they understand that's not more of the same aircraft, that's Pan Am. Aboard the Pan Am jet, the impact has torn open the upper fuselage from the cockpit back through the first-class section. The stairwell to the upper deck is gone. So are the usual escape routes. No slides deploy because the exits they're built for no longer exist. Survivors, mostly from the forward cabin and the area over the undamaged left wing, climb out through openings torn into the plane. They drop to the runway or make their way across the wing to jump the last several feet down. Because the fire crews are occupied elsewhere, this early rescue is almost entirely improvised, passengers and surviving crew members pulling each other clear, with no equipment and no medical support yet on scene. It's several more minutes before help arrives at the Pan Am wreck at all. When the numbers are finally counted, they're almost impossible to comprehend. 248 dead aboard KLM, everyone on board. 335 dead aboard Pan Am. 61 survived, all from that same forward section and wing area. Combined, it remains the deadliest single accident in the history of commercial aviation. Investigators arrived within days. Spanish officials from the Civil Aviation Accident Commission, joined by teams from the Netherlands, the United States, KLM, and Pan Am. Around 70 people worked the case, piecing together tower recordings and the cockpit voice recorders pulled from both wrecks. The Spanish report placed the blame squarely on KLM's captain. He'd begun his takeoff row believing he had clearance and believing Pan Am had already cleared the runway, when in fact it hadn't been asked to confirm either. The Dutch authorities pushed back. Their own analysis agreed Van Zanten had taken off prematurely, but argued he shouldn't carry the blame alone, not when a masked radio transmission and a string of non-standard phrases had set the misunderstanding in motion in the first place. Investigators also looked at something newer to accident analysis at the time: the dynamic inside the cockpit itself. Van Zanten was one of KLM's most senior and respected pilots, a trainer whose photo appeared in the airline's own advertising. When First Officer Mers raised a concern about clearance, and when Flight Engineer Schroeder questioned whether Pan Am was really clear, neither pressed the point once the captain answered. Investigators concluded that his seniority made him difficult to challenge, even when something felt wrong. In the end, KLM accepted that its crew bore responsibility and compensated the families of everyone who died in agreements that eventually totaled around $110 million. The Dutch objection stayed on the record. It didn't change the outcome or the fact that a series of small, human misunderstandings had produced the deadliest accident in aviation history. Out of the wreckage came some of the most significant safety reforms in aviation history, most of them aimed directly at the two failures that caused this crash: in clear language and a cockpit where junior crew couldn't challenge the captain. The word takeoff was the first casualty. International regulators moved to restrict it to the single moment a controller actually issues takeoff clearance. Every other stage of departure now uses the word departure instead, specifically so a phrase like "we are now at takeoff" can never again be mistaken for permission to go. Controllers were also required to actively correct a pilot's readback if it was wrong, rather than simply moving on. The bigger shift was cultural.
Tenerife became the founding case study for what's now called crew resource management, training built around one core idea. Any member of a flight crew, regardless of rank, has not just the right, but the obligation to speak up, and captains are trained to listen. United Airlines ran the first formal CRM program in 1981. By 1995, the FAA required it for every airline crew flying in the United States. It's a direct answer to what happened on that runway, where a flight engineer's doubt was voiced but never pushed. Airports changed too. Ground radar, once rare, became standard equipment, giving controllers a way to track aircraft on the ground, even when fog erases the view from the tower. The exact blind spot that let two 747s occupy the same runway without anyone realizing it until it was too late. There's one more name worth knowing from that day: Robina van Lanschot, a Dutch tour guide who'd flown in on KLM 4805 that morning. When the crew called everyone back to the plane for the flight to Las Palmas, she didn't go. She lived on Tenerife, and doubling back through Gran Canaria just to return home the next day felt pointless. She called her boyfriend from a payphone and walked out of the airport. KLM's 248 people on board became 248. She would spend years afterward carrying guilt over a decision that by pure chance was the only thing that separated her from everyone else on that flight. That's the shape of the whole disaster. Not one dramatic failure, a string of small human choices and near misses, any one of which changed might have stopped it. A captain who chose to refuel early, a controller's word choice, a missed taxiway, a 3-second radio squeal. Take away any single link, and 583 people go home. Today, a monument stands near the airport, engraved with all of their names. Los Rodeos itself, now called Tenerife North, still operates today, its procedures forever changed by what happened on that runway. Nearly 50 years later, pilots the world over are still trained, in part, because of what happened here. To say what they see, to question what sounds wrong, and never to assume that probably fine is the same thing as cleared. And that's really the question worth sitting with here. If a story like this is worth your time, there's more where it came from. Subscribing costs you nothing, and it tells me to keep digging into moments like this one, where a handful of small decisions quietly reshaped an entire industry. I'm genuinely curious where you land on it too. Knowing everything that stacked up that afternoon, the fog, the fuel, the radio squeal, a captain few crew members felt comfortable challenging. Do you think Van Zanten was the cause, or just the last domino in a chain everyone else helped build? Tell me your take in the comments.